So we are now being recorded, so we are ready to go. Zok Tehillah Gemara, Tashma. So we started off with the following shaila. We're going to go back a little bit. If you hold that there's no leida leivarim, meaning that if the uber sticks its hand out and pulls it back in, and then there's the shchita, even the error will be mutter. What would be if hoitzi ha'uber es yodai v'chzira? The hoitzi es yodai v'chzira. He put out one hand, in the other hand, and the uber kept on sticking out one thing at a time. Acha shlimai lerubai. Ma what would be the halacha? Miyamrinan hanafak leruba. At the end of the day, if you add up all of the individual situations where he sticks out his arm, so if the sum total of the Ivarim, you have Roiv, and therefore maybe it's Kenoilat. Idilma Kivan the Hadar, since it didn't stay out, each Aver was pulled back in before another Aver was pushed out, we say that this animal is not Noilat. And Imdim Zaloimar Kivan the Hadar, what would be if it became irrevocable, meaning Haiti is Uber Shali V'chadcha. So the Uber stuck out one Aver at a time, each Aver sticking out doesn't really mean anything, but it was cut off. So now you have Roiv of the Ivarim is actually not even in the mother anymore. At the end of the day, Ruba b'vasachas binan, and that never happened. Tashma, Zok Gemara, maybe we could bring a raya. Zaklal, Rashi says this is our old Mishnah. Davar shagufa aser, if it's like the tchoil or the kloyos that was cut out inside the guf, it's going to be aser. That's not covered by the kol babehema toichelu. V'she'ena gufa, but if it's a part of the uber, not part of the guf of the mother, mutter will be mutter. So frag the Gemara, v'she'ena gufa mutter. Why? What's the chiddush of that? I already know that the uber, if it's cut off inside, it's considered called babehema. So what extra in this rule, in this klal, is the Tana trying to convey with eina gufa mutter? She'ein gufa lo suyimai. Let's suggest lav la suyi kahagavna. Maybe it means exactly this case. The nishar miyot uber b'fnim. If miyot of the uber was nishar b'fnim, v'ruba yatsa mechutach, and Rav came out mechutach, let's say that's also going to be mutter. That's also eina gufa, and it will be mutter, and therefore we should bring a right that it's not considered like it was noilad. Zok Gemara loy. That's not what we learn from the kol she'ein gufa is going to be mutter. You learn from there kolut b'me'ei para. Just like yesterday we said from the shtei process, we learn from the Torah the halach of kolut b'me'ei para. Here from kol she'ein gufa, the Tana is telling us that same chiddush, that kolut b'mei para is going to be mutter to be eaten. V'alibud Rab Shimon, who holds that if it was born that way, it would not be mutter to be eaten. The Avag of the Rab Shimon called ben para aser hanimili hechad yotz lavir ha'olam avol b'mei imoy. If we discover this b'mei imoy after the shechting of the mother, sure it will be mutter, and that's what the Tana is signaling to us, is being maramis to us when he said zak klal kol she'ein gufa mutter. Bray Rav Chananya. Rav Chananya had the following shaila. Haitzi uber es yodoi ba'azara. What would happen if the uber stuck his hand out ba'azara? Then we know if anything leaves its perimeter, it becomes possible. But here, this animal is a carbon, so it has two perimeters. It has the perimeter of the rechem of the mother, but it also has the perimeter of the azara. So haitzi uber es yodoi mahu. Do you say migu da have a mechitza lagabe kodshim, have a nami lagabe dahai, and therefore the aver will be mutter because we'll say it didn't breach its perimeter, its secondary perimeter, the perimeter of the walls of the azara? Or do you say oidilma lagabe dahai lav mechitzahi? The mechitza's uber is imahi. That mechitza is lagabe the psul yaitze of kodshim. Lagabe what's called a yalud, that's the mother's rechem. You can't mish mechitzas with mechitzas. Right? We know we set up the mechitzas. You got to keep the right mechitzah in the right place. Zogt Rashi, Hoitze Uber shel Shlomim es Yodei b'shah shchitas imoi ba'azara ma'ul yosloi choymas hazara mechitza latiroi b'shchita hasayim. Frag the Gemara, Amalei Abaye, v'tiboyelach kadeshim kalim b'Yerushalayim. Why don't you clear? Why are you clearing in the Azara? Clear if it's a Shlomim, clear if it was in Yerushalayim. Because there's a set of mechitzos of Yerushalayim that Kadeshim Kalim has to be eaten within Yerushalayim. Zogt Gemara, Kadeshim Kalim Yerushalayim, my time aloi coming boilach. Why didn't you clear that Yerushalayim should also be a perimeter that wasn't breached? The mechitzas over imoil, because you're going to tell me was mishtarain where you're allowed to eat the meat of a shlomim in what's considered a birth. Well, if you're going to say that, then hakanami when you're in the Azara, you would say the same thing. Mechitzas uber imoihu. So I just want to highlight what Rav Chananya said. Rav Chananya said he had a tzad to say that Haitzi Uber Es Yodei Ba'Azara, maybe the mechitza of the Azara would solve it. I just want to, that might be relevant. It might be relevant, I'm not sure. Boy Ilfa. Ilfa had a different shaila. Haitzi Uber Es Yodei Bein Simen LeSimen. What happened is they shechted one simen, and the uber was completely within the guf of its mother. And then after the first siman was shechted, before the veishet got shechted, the uber stuck his hand out. Now, we're going, according to the Manda Omar, that the shechita helps on the second, on the uber that stuck out, on the aver that stuck out, the shechita will help to make it ois nevela. Remember, we had a shaila on the top of Omid Beis if it's a nevela because it was Yosy, it's like Aver Menachai, or if the shechita will at least help to make it ois nevela. So we're working according to the Chachamim that it's ois nevela. So the question is, Haitzi Uber Es Yodoi Bein Simen LeSimen Ma'u. Mi mitzvah of Simen Rishon LeSimen Sheni. Now there's a little bit of an off balance over here because the Simen Rishon was machshir this Aver even lachila, because while the first siman was being shechted, the aver was completely within the mother. But the siman sheni is not doing that. The siman sheni is only taking away the tumas nevela from this aver. So you have the siman rishon and the siman sheni are off balance. So the Gemara wants to declare mi mitzvah of siman rishon le siman sheni l'tayr midei nevela, because you're not allowed to eat this aver, but we are saying that it's not going to be an avela. In order to say that it's not going to be an avela, you have to say that it did experience a full shechita, which meaning you have to be mitzaref the shechita of the first siman to the shechita of the second siman, and say they're working together to create a scenario that takes away the tumas nevela from this aver, right?
But you have to say that the shechita of the first siman is the maisa that takes away the nevela.
Well, it's both. For a behemoth, you need shechita of two simanim.
Correct.
So, but the first siman was even matter la'achila. The second siman will only matter that aver from becoming an avela, but it can't be matter la'achila because at that point in time the aver was already out of the rechem. So the Gemara wants to know: will the siman rishon be mitzvah for the siman sheni l'tahare midei nevela, or not? And we could see Rashi. Mitzvah siman rishon l'siman sheni garsinan. V'hachim miboilei. Siman rishon kishenishchat ba'oid aver zeh b'soicha haya ba'lahater af b'achila. At that point, it would even be muter b'achila. But umishayatza, once the aver was stuck out of the mother after the shechita of the siman rishon, ein chaticha siman sheni ba'al aver zeh ela l'tar b'dei nevela. This heter is only going to do a partial heter. It's only being mitar b'dei nevela. Like we said at the top of Omid Beis. So the question is, mi mitzvah of siman rishon, which had a different function, shaboy l'taher ulahatir, with zeh with the siman sheni, which had a different function. She'ena bo'el l'taher, lahoyel loymia l'taher. At least I should be mitzaref for the common goal of being mitzaref this aver. And therefore, hoylu shneim shavim bekach. Since lagabi, what it has to do on the second aver, they're both in sync with each other. Oidilma, let's just see the other side. Kivan the Yeshchilak Beinayim, since each of these two simonim, the shechita of each of these two simonim, have different strengths, maybe they can no longer combine. And therefore, loy mistarf rishain, shou nishchat, l'shnei devarim, imasheni, she'enei ero l'tayrei midei nevela. Ve'en kan shechita shalem l'tayrei. You don't have one individual consistent shechita. So, Rava, Zokt Rava, I don't understand the Shaila. Of course it should work, because let's look at it from a different perspective. The Siman Sheni you're going to tell me is not parallel to the Siman Rishon, right? But the Uber that still remain inside the mother, that's for sure kosher, even L'achila. So you see already that these two Simanim are working hand in hand. So Zokt Rava Kavachoyrim Hoyoloi Siman Rishon LeSiman Sheni LaTir Be'achila, to be matter the Uber that remained inside Be'achila. So clearly the shechita of these two Simanim are definitely working hand in hand and working together. It should surely be able to get together. These two shchitas of the two Simanim should surely be able to combine forces to be matter at least the Eber that was stuck out Midei Nevela. So that Shaila is now eliminated. So we have a different Shaila. Boy Rabbi Yirmiyah, Mahu Lochosh Lazaroi. This is a very, very fascinating Shaila. Zokt Rashi, Mahu Lochosh Lazaroi, and the maskona of what this Shaila is will have no resemblance to what we think the Shaila is right now. Right now we think the Shaila is Mahu Lochosh Lazaroi Shal Uber Zeh, Shahoitzi Yodoi. So you have an Uber who stuck its tongue out. Then the mother got shechted. So what do you have now? The whole Uber you're allowed to eat, it has a hechsher of shechita, except for that aver, which could never have a hechsher shechita. That's going to be a nevela, right? Now, this animal, you can eat every part of it except for the arm. Now we had yesterday a shayla, could you shecht it now? You can't shecht it now. Because this is not a shechtable animal. Why is it not a shechtable animal? Because most of it is a Pkua, which pre-shechted. So there is no way to solve the problem with that arm, which now takes us to the famous story about the Ben Pkua farm. You know the story about the Ben Pkua farm? Rabbi Heinemann's goal in life, it was always to bring down the cost of kosher meat. So Rabbi Heinemann came up with an unbelievable patent. Let's take a male Ben Pkua, let's take a female Ben Pkua, let's mate them, and their children do not need shechita, and build a whole farm out of only Ben Pekuas, start breeding in mass Ben Pekuas, and you no longer need shechita.
Really, the child of a Ben Pekua does not?
No, we're about to learn that.
Oh.
So there's no shechita required. So you've totally eliminated the need for shechita. That's what Rav Heinemann wanted to do. If you think about it, it's an ingenious idea that will drop the cost of kosher meat dramatically. The hechsherim might end up losing a lot of customers because they're no longer needed anymore. Is that not a fascinating idea?
AI is putting the shachtim out of business.
That's right. But you know why they didn't allow that? Because what happens, chas v'sholem, if a regular behema mates with one of these Ben Pekuas? Now you can't shech them either. Now there's no eitzah for them because it's half shechtable, half not shechtable. So that idea was scratched. But at first glance, it seemed like a really cool idea.
Why can't you shecht it?
Because shechita doesn't work on the Ben Pekua. Because it's exempt from the parsha of shechita. It's shachat already.
It's exempt, but can't you do like
But shechita won't work. Shechita does not work. No, it doesn't work. So Zog to Gemara, Ma'u lochash lezaroi. Zog to Rashi, Shal uber zeh shahoitzi yodei v'nishchate imai, v'hoitzi uhu chai, and now you have this animal that's a Ben Pekua except for its arm, the gadol, and it grew up, ubala behema, so if it was a male, it fertilized, it impregnated a female cow, v'hoilet, and it gave birth. Ma'u sheyaser ever kayoytze b'hanoilet mimenu. Will the arm of the child also be aser? Because it passes on from the arm of the father to the arm of the child. Zog to Gemara, hey chadami, let's get down to the details. Ilema de ozl abehema me'al yasa, if this male half Ben Pekua was impregnated a regular animal that requires shechita, My area high the ispe iser yoitze. Why are you clearing the shaila with this hybrid animal that only has a problem with its arm? Clear the shaila afilu ben pekua da almonami. Take a full-blown ben pekua, which is exactly what we were talking about. If you hold choshin l'zera and you consider the input that the male puts in to creating a fetus, that's considered part of the father's input. So there's some father here. There's some father of ben pekua here, right? So therefore, if you hold choshin l'zera av, ben pekua habal behimim al yosa havlad ein loy takana. That's the problem with the ben pekua farm, because havlad ein loy takana. So that's the shaila. Why do you need to clear a shaila when you have something that's only a part ben pekua and one aver sticks out? Really, the shaila has nothing to do with the fact that it stuck its arm out. The shaila has everything to do with the fact that it's a ben pekua. So therefore, we're aborting the shaila as we asked it, and now we're saying, no, loy tzricha, we're talking about a different case. The ozal a ben pekua the kavosei. So this male ben pekua, who stuck its arm out during the shchit, before the shchit of its mother, impregnated a female ben pekua that had the exact same condition. Zogt Rashi, so in such a condition, the ein vlad ton shchita ela mishum charever. Now the vlad would only need shchita because of one aver, that arm that was stuck out, side by the father and side by the mother. Vahu aver lo mishteri b'shchita. But you can't possibly make the shchita the lav shchitahi, because it's not a shchita because the rest of the animal is not eligible for shchita. So Zogt Gemara, this is the shaila. My aver moiler aver, can we say that the problem aver remains the same if it was the right forearm of the male and the right forearm of the female, so it will also be limited to the right forearm of the baby. So therefore, shech the animal, and just that right forearm you won't eat. Or for carrot, you don't need shchita, and you could eat the whole thing without shchita. They're both ben pekuas, but that one aver you won't eat. Is that what you say? Aver moyer aver v'chatach le'vishari, and at least you could salvage the rest of the animal. Who said that all of the input from this arm is going to end up with that arm? It all gets mixed up into uncommon DNA, and now the entire animal is going to be contaminated. Zok Rashi mevavel ziyarei umbitzer kol avlad mishum da'oisa aver. Who holds that chosheshin lezera ha'av. Zok to Gemara ela pshita, you're going to have to say that the mevavel zari. I'm sorry, I skipped. So Zok to Gemara hada amar. Then the Gemara said. Then who said? Who's clearing this shaila? Who is clearing this shaila? No. Rabbi Yirmiyah. So then Rabbi Yirmiyah said, no, that can't be the shaila either. Pshita the mevavel zari. Of course it's mevavel zari, because if not, then kain is suma yula tsuma. If you're going to tell me that each body part sticks to the body part of its progeny, that means every blind animal will give birth to a blind animal. Vikita yulat kita. And if an animal doesn't have a front leg, then the child won't have a front leg. And that's not true. Elo pshita de mevavel zari. So once again, if you have a mother and a father that both have this condition, the entire child will be ein loy takana. Zog to Gemara, v'hari kame boilan. And therefore, this is maybe what the shaila is. Behema ba'alma, lav mikoyach, chelach, chele v'damka ose v'shori. If you think about it, a regular animal, not a ben pekua, how could any animal be mutter? Part of the animal that impregnated and became pregnant, part of the parents is chelev and dam, which are also to be eaten. And if you're saying mevavel zari, so now the children, every single part of the children has chelev and dam in it. So how could you ever eat any animal? So don't you say by a regular animal, lav mikaya chelev and dam kasi, and nevertheless it's shari? Hachanami loy shna. So over here too, even though the both parents have this condition where one of its avorim is not allowed to be eaten, and therefore we'll say it does not impact the rest of the animal, and you can eat the whole animal, similar to every other animal that has chaylev and dam mixed into it. Oy dilma trei isur aminon. When it comes to mevalvo zare, we will ignore the input of chaylev and dam. Two averos we'll look away from. But tlotza, to look away from chaylev dam and the Eber min achai of the ben Pkua, that's too much. Lo yaminon. Maybe that's the shaila. Zokt Gemara, that's not a good shaila either. Ulaman, Ila Reb Meir, if you're going to go according to Reb Meir, he holds Isser Chaylev Adam Ika. In fact, a fetus has an Isser Chaylev Adam. If there's Chaylev Adam, if you take a fetus out, and you're not allowed to eat the Chaylev Adam of the fetus. But Isser Yoytze Leka. Reb Meir holds that there is no Isser Yoytze. Rashi says the whole Reb Meir afilu ma'aseh b'fnim ton shchita. Reb Meir holds the whole thing of ben Pkua is a non-starter. A ben Pkua needs shchita. We're going with the sugya of our Mishnah who says that kol asher ba'behema tarchelu. Reb Meir argues on the entire system. Kedekatani masnisin umatza ba ben tishachai ton shchita. So therefore, according to Reb Meir, you can't be asking the shaila because yes, he holds there's a problem with the chaylev of the baby, but there's no issue of the shchita. And according to Rabbi Yehuda Eimer, einoig b'shlil and v'chel b'muter. Rabbi Yehuda holds there is no problem of chaylev and dam by a shlil. So therefore, you don't say that there's two isurim we're looking away from. There are no two isurim. There is no isur chaylev and dam on the shlil. Ella, because of that, we have to abort this entire line of questioning. And alakol mikoyach loy amrinon. You never ever consider the fact that it came from Isser, not Isser now re-emerges in the baby. You don't? Just like the chaylev and dam doesn't re-emerge, nothing re-emerges. Vishari, and it's mutter. So therefore, we don't care if the mother had a condition with its leg, and if the father had a condition with its leg, it doesn't matter. The child is no problem. So what is the shaila? We've shot down any angle, any option of what the shaila of Rabbi Yirmiyah was. Zok Gemara, I'll tell you what the shaila is. The whole shaila is, if you had a female ben Pkua, are you allowed to drink the milk of the female ben Pkua? So going back to the original shaila of Ilfa, Haiti Uber Es Yoda Bid Simen L'Simen. No, not that's the shaila. Boy Rabbi Yirmiyah, Mal Lochash L'Zayroi. Once this female ben Pkua gives birth and it's now producing milk, could you drink the milk? That's what it means Lochash L'Zayroi. Once there's children of this ben Pkua, are you allowed to drink the milk?
Did you skip a whole bunch of lines? Something happened here.
Where?
I don't know. Maybe I'm stupid.
Oh, I did skip. I'm sorry, I did. So let's go back. I'm sorry. Who are we going according to? Either Meir Isur Chaylev V'Dav Ika, but Isur Yoytze Leka, and either Rabbi Yehuda Isur Yoytze Ika, but Isur Chaylev V'Dam Leka, and as well as Isur Giranasha. That none we learned Giranasha Noig B'Shlil V'Chel B'Yaser Divrei Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Eimer Ein Noig B'Shlil V'Chel B'Muter. So we can't ask 2 Yisurim, they're going to allow, the 30 Yisurim we won't allow. Because there's no 3 Yisurim. According to Rabbi Yehuda, there's no Isur Chaylev Dam and Gid Anosha. There's only the Isur Yoytze. And according to Rabbi Meir, there's no problem with the Isur Yoytze because he holds you got to shacht it anyway. Ella, Shlil is a fetus. So Ein Noig B'Shlil, there is no Isur Gid Anosha of a fetus, nor is there an Isur Chaylev or Dam. Ella kol mikoyach lo yamrinon v'shori. You're never going to say that since the mother and the father had these issues, it's going to transmit to the child. The same way the Isur Chaylev and Dav doesn't transmit, so too the Isur of Aaron and Achai will not transmit. So now we have a whole new shaila. This is what the shaila must be. Are you allowed to drink the milk of a ben Pkua whose arm stuck out? What's the shaila? Cholov de alma. If you think about it, every time you drink milk, why isn't it Ever Minachai? it's part of a cow that wasn't shechted yet. So chalav d'alma, loy ke'ever min achai dami, is it not like ever min achai, yet for sure it's still mutter. So hainami, this as well, even though there is a component of ever min achai on the arm that stuck out, hainami loy shna, the fact that it's coming from a live animal is not a concern. Oidoma, there's a very big difference. If it comes from a regular cow that's a live animal, that cow might now be a never min achai, but it's a solvable problem. It could be shechted, and maybe that's why you're allowed to drink its milk. But this animal, you could never possibly solve the problem, because it's always going to have this aver that's usher. Maybe because of that, since it's not a solvable problem, it cannot be solved with shchita, and therefore maybe you shouldn't be able to drink the milk of a ben Pkua if one of its avarim did not remain in the animal. Zogt Gemara Tiku. Okay, Zogt Gemara weiter. Choitech me'uber. We know the halacha is if you cut a piece of the uber off inside the mother, but that piece remained inside the mother, that piece will become the mother off inside. That will not be chuter b'shchita. How do we know this? The chesiv chol behema mafreses parsa behema ba behema. It says v'chol behema at the beginning, and it says ba behema oishet techelu. So behema ba behema a behema inside the other behema you're allowed to eat. L'rabois es avlad. That tells you that a vlad could be eaten with the shchita of its mother. Zok to Gemara, if it's a standalone animal and it can be eaten with the shchita of its mother, you should be able to take a carbon and take a pregnant animal, and you should be able to say that the fetus inside should be a tamura keneged this live carbon, because you're considering it a behema inside a behema. Alamatnan, why did we learn that you cannot do such a thing? Ein mamirin lo yevarin be'obrin, v'lo obrin be'evarin, v'lo yevarin ve'obrin be'shleimin. You cannot make an uber a tamura keneged a live carbon. V'lo shleimin b'hem. So, but the problem is, if you're going to learn that this is a behema inside a behema, so then why can't you use it to make a tamura with? Now we're not asking you, it's not allowed, why won't it work, right? Ela Omar Kra, because the pasuk says, "V'chol behema l'rabois es avlad." It's not because it's a behema ba behema. No, that's not why it's mutter. It's mutter because of the v'chol. There's tama ribui that this behema, the vlad, will be mutter, but not that it has an independent identity of a separate animal. So therefore, it's not shver anymore. Why you can't make a tamura? It's not considered an animal, but it's still included from the v'chol that it will be mutter with the shchita of its mother. Freik the Gemara, if it's not an independent animal and it's just included in the shchita of its mother because it's inside the mother, so then why don't you apply that to the pieces of the mother as well? If it has to be a behema ba behema, so that would be a distinction between the uber versus a piece of the mother herself. But once you're saying it's no longer identified as a behema, it's just because of the extra ribui of a choil, and we know that doesn't work. Our very Mishnah says it. But so we're stuck. We need to find a limud that would say that a piece of an uber inside the mother will be nitar b'shchitas himoy, but not a piece of the mother inside the mother. Omar Kra oisa. It says oisa techelu shleima v'loy chasera. You only eat something that's complete, and therefore, if the tchoil and if the kloyos are missing from the mother, that's not complete. That won't become mutter. Freik the Gemara. So then, if it's not a complete uber, it shouldn't even be mutter. Tishturi, it should be mutter. Why? Because it is a complete item inside the mother. It is a complete thing inside the behema. Why is it also bechila? Because be'ina parsois veleka. Because it needs parsois. It says in the pasuk parsois, and the yoina doesn't have parsois. Frank Pumar Alamayata Kolut B'mei Para Litzar. If it was a Kolut B'mei Para, it should be also. We already learned that we're marbe from Parsois that it's going to be kosher, even though it doesn't have split hoofs. Hotanu Dvei Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, Parsa Babehema Toichelu. Zog to Gemara, we learned from Tanu Dvei Rabbi Shmuel that Parsa Babehema Toichelu, so we have a special limud from it. Rabbi Simi bar Ashi Omar, so you have a problem. He told us Parsa Babehema Toichelu, but why? But why? What's the difference between that and a yoina? Right? If a yoina is not good, why is this good? So Gemara, Rabbi Simi bar Ashi Omar, la'olam kidika amrit me'ikara. Let's go back to the original pshat that an uber is called a behema, so therefore it's a behema inside a behema, and that's why it's mutter. But parts of the mother inside the behema will not be mutter. We have a problem. What about tamura? If it's an individual behema, why can't we make tamura out of it? Udikakal shalach ein mamirin zok to Gemara. That's not a problem. Ha mani, you know who this is going like? Ha mani Rab Shimoni. It's going according to Rab Shimon. The makish tamura lemaiser. He has a special hektish between Truma and Meiser that teaches us ma meiser einay noig be'ivorim ve'ubrim. Just like Meiser. You can't make Meiser Behema off an Aver or off an Uber. It's got to be Kol Asher Yaver Tachas Hashovet. It's only relevant in a live animal. Af Tamura Einin Heges Beivarim Ve'ubarim. Uminotim. And how do we know? And how do we know to make such a limud? So actually, Uminotimra Da'Ein Mamir in Rab Shimoni. You want to say that the bride that says Ein Mamirin will be going according to Reb Shimon, who's makish Tamura to Meiser. How do you know it's the same person? Maybe it's a different Tana who says Ein Mamirin, and therefore you can't use the fact that Reb Shimon is makish Tamura to Meiser. So the Gemara that's none we learned. Amar Rabbi Yosy. Rabbi Yosy made a statement. He made a statement that a Tamura on a leg, if you only make an aver tamura, the whole animal will become a tamura. And the Tanakama argued on him. And Rabbi Yehuda made an argument to the Tanakama that it should work. Why? By a regular person who's being makdish an animal lechatchila. If you say the leg of this animal should be an oila, we say the kedusha spreads and the whole animal becomes an oila. So if you'd say that for originally being makdish an animal, why wouldn't you say that when you're making a tamura? That's what Rabbi Yosy said. So therefore, af kishiyomer regel shalzu tachazu tehei kula tamura tachtel. So the question is, who was Rabbi Yosy talking to? Rabbi Yosy said, don't you agree with me that if you're makdish an animal lechatchila, you can just be makdish the foot and it'll spread? That you agree with me on. So why do you argue with me when it comes to a tamura? Why should a tamura work any differently than it works when you're originally makdish an animal? So who's Rabbi Yosy talking to? Rabbi Yosy made an argument. By Mukdashim, don't you agree with me? So who was Rabbi Yosy talking to and claiming that you must agree with me by Mukdashim? If you're going to suggest that Rabbi Yosy was talking to Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, and they're the ones who held that by a tamura, a foot will not become a tamura. Mi'is lahu high svara. They don't hold that when you're originally makdish an animal, you can just be makdish the foot and it will spread. They don't hold to that. Because what time we learned, you might think that you could just be makdish the regal and it will spread. Talmud Leimer, kol asher yiten mimenu l'Hashem yia kodesh, mimenu kodesh v'lo kulay kodesh. So if it's not kulay kodesh, so what happens to this leg? Yochol teisei l'chulin. You would think that, okay, so your whole claim was invalid and nothing becomes kodesh. Talmud Leimer, yiyeh b'avyasateh. No, the leg becomes kodesh ka'oila. What do you do with an animal that only its foot has kedushas oila? So what do? Is it haketzat? You find somebody who's looking to buy a carbon oila, and you sell him this animal whose foot is a carbon oila, and he pays you $100 for the animal, but you're only allowed to keep 90 of those dollars because only $90 worth of this animal was chulin. $10 was already a naila. So you see clearly Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda hold that when you're originally makdish an animal, you could be makdish just a foot. So when Rabbi Yosy was telling his Tanakama, wouldn't you agree with me when you're makdish something, even if you're makdish the foot, it will spread? He couldn't have been talking to Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda because they don't agree with him even in that part. So therefore, Rabbi Yosy, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Yosy and Rabbi Shimon, they hold that it will work. Minay lo'omer ragel shozu oila today kula oila Talmud lo'omer yiyah l'Rabbi says kula. So therefore, when Rabbi Yosy by Tamura asked his opponent, wouldn't you agree with me that when you're originally makdish an animal, if you're makdish the foot, it will spread? So agree with me by Tamura as well. Who was Rabbi Yosy talking to? Laman, even Rabbi Meir of Rabbi Yehuda, you can't say he was talking to Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda because his claim is simply not true. Mi is lahu hay svara. They hold it wouldn't even work by kachim. Ela lav Rabbi Shimon. It must be that he was talking to Rabbi Shimon, and Rabbi Shimon argued on him, and Rabbi Shimon holds that, in fact, you could be makdish, you could make tamura. He holds that you could not make tamura. It's Rabbi Shimon who holds that you could not make tamura from just a leg. And that's how we know that that's Rabbi Shimon, and the reason for it is because we learn it from Ma'aser Behema. Zok Marloi, not necessarily was Rabbi Yosy talking to Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Yosy told me didn't have Sheikh Amar. He told Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, you don't agree with me on anything. But from my perspective, there's no difference between making a Tamura and making the original Hektish. So at the end of the day, why is it that if the Tchoil from the mother was cut out, it would not work, and the shechita wouldn't cover for it? But if you cut off a piece of the uber, the shechita will work for it. It's because it says, Kol ba behema tochelu. A behema, inside a behema you can eat. A tchoil and kloyos is not a behema inside a behema. It's part of the original behema. But any part of the second behema, that will be covered by the shechita. If it's an independent behema, why can't you make tamura with it? Because it's going according to Rabbi Shimon, who holds that you cannot make tamura, that you cannot not make truma with an uber because of the limud from Meiser. Okay, zok to Gemara weiter. Hamivakeres hamakasha leilit. Now, it's a very big problem if you have a bechor behema born to you. It's a carbon. Who wants to deal with a carbon, right? So what you usually do is, anybody who owns an animal that's about to give birth for the first time, they'll take in a goyish partner. If there's a goyish partner involved, then there's not an issue. Because a goyish partner involved in an animal, there's no din bechor. So what if this mother's in the middle of giving birth? So you know what you could do? Mechatach ever, you can cut, if it sticks out a foot, cut it off. It's a carbon. It's not a carbon until the full animal is born. So therefore, mechatach ever umash l'chlavim. You can cut one little piece at a time as it comes out, throw it to the dogs, and then those things do not have a din of a carbon. However, Yotza Rubai, once Roiva the animal came out, now it has been born. Once it has been born, it takes on Kedushas Bechor. I'm sorry?
Collectively or in one shot?
Collectively. Yotza Rubai, once it passes the Roiv mark, then Hareze Yikaver, now everything has to be buried. V'niftaras mina Bechor. If this animal gives birth again, the next animal is not a bechor because the first child was already the bechor. Itmar zok gemara. What happens if you didn't cut it up, like in our Mishnah's case, but Yosef shlish, a third of the animal came out, the third that came out, you sold to a goy. Now the goy is a partner in the animal. The chazer v'yotze shlish acher. Then another third came out. So now combined, the animal was born, but the animal that was born has a 50% partner in it of the goy. So Rav Huna Amar Kadosh, it's going to be Kadosh, and it's going to nullify the partnership of the goy, and we'll see the mechanics of why. Rabba Amar Einoi Kadosh, it's not kadosh because there's a partner in there, a goyish partner. Rav Huna Amar kadosh, kasaver lemafreya kadosh. He holds, yes, until the animal is born, it doesn't have Kedushas Korban. But once it's born, we say the Kedushas Korban was there even before it was born. So the Kedushas Korban is Schal Mafreya, which means you could never have sold it to the Goy, because you sold the Goy what didn't belong to you. That's Rab Huna's Shita. V'chimin enafik le'rubei igloi milsa le'mafreya the meikara avakadosh uman dezoven, and that he sold to the Goy laf klum zoven, because it was never his. But Rabbi Omar Eina Kadosh, Ksaver Mikana Laba Kadosh. When does the Bechor become a carbon? After it's born. But you have already sold half of it to the Goy, Umajizov and Shaperzov. Zog to Gemara Va'azdu Latamayu. This machloik is as to when the Kedushas Bechor is chal on the baby that's born, whether it's chal Mafreya before it was born, or whether it's only chal later on, actually is relevant in a different discussion as well. The Itmar. Yotze shlish derech toifi. This is a weird thing. You had a cesarean and you took one leg out through the C-section. Then, ushnei shlishi, and then the final 2/3 came out derech rechem. I'm not sure how that could physically happen, unless what happened is the 2 legs were pulled out from the C-section, but then it went back in, and then the whole animal came out through a regular birth. So maybe there's a video from MDY on how this could happen. Rab Huna Amar Eina Kadosh. Rab Huna says this is not Kadosh b'Kedushas B'chayra. Rabbi Amar Kadosh. Rabbi says it will be Kadosh b'Kedushas B'chayra. And let's see why. Rav Huna Amar Eina Kadosh. Remember, Rav Huna was the one who said that the Kedusha is Chal L'Mafreya. So he holds, the reason why this is not Kadosh is Rav Huna Tamei Dama L'Mafreya Kadosh. He holds the original part of the animal that came out through C-section was also a Bechor. But a Bechor that comes out through C-section is no longer Kadosh b'Kedushas B'chayra. And therefore, Veruba Kama Lesa Berechem. The first 2/3 didn't come out through the Rechem, because half of it came out through a C-section. And therefore, it's not Kadosh b'Bechayra. So here, holding L'Mafreya actually is a Kula, and makes it Ois Bechor. In the case of selling it to a Goy, holding it L'Mafreya is L'Chomra, makes it into a Bechor. Rabbi Omar Kadosh, because Rabbi Tamei Domer Mikanu Laba Kadosh. The Kedusha doesn't come until the end. At the end, the fact is 2/3 came out through a normal birth. V'ruba derech rechem nofik. Utricha, you need this machloikis to be expressed between Rav Huna and Rabba in both these places. You know why? Because in one place is a chumrah, and one place is a kula, and you would say, when does he say this? Only the chumrah. But who said he would say it l'kula as well? Utricha yashmin baha kam Rav Huna mishum de l'kula. It's because he wants to go to chumrah, he doesn't want to be mekel. Avu bahak l'chumrah. But in the case where it would be, where it's a chumrah what he's doing, and it would be a kula otherwise, ema moidele l'rabba, maybe he would be moide that you have to go l'chumrah. On the other hand, v'hit mar baha kama rabba avu baha ema moidele Rav Huna tzricha. That's why you need this machlekes expressed in both places to tell that Rav Huna says it's l'mafreya bein l'chumrah bein l'kula, and Rabba holds it's mikanu laba bein l'chumrah bein l'kula. Okay, we'll stop here. This was a very unusual type of daf.